The second letter for this week is the letter X. And probably a lot of you think maybe this would be the hand sign, which looks like an X, but that is not it. You do all of the letter signs with one hand. So this is what you do. It's like you're pointing at the sky, but then you bend the finger, okay? So point with your pointer finger and then bend it. So that is the sign for X. So if I did it with both hands, it would look like this. All right? So X is a very interesting letter. You are mostly going to see it inside and at the end of words. So that is the sound we're going to learn first. We're not going to learn what X says at the beginning of a word right now. Well, I'm going to tell you, but that's not what you need to remember, okay? When you see an X in the middle or at the end of a word, it sounds like it's saying its name. X, x. It doesn't exactly say X, but the ending, the x, x. So remember this from the lesson on V. So this is my box. I think it's the prettiest box I've ever seen. There's a little message. I don't know if it'll be backwards for you guys. It says, "You are always loved, and so are you." So anyway, my box has these two sides, right? And it also has these two sides. So here's how you make the sign for box. It's like you make the front and the back and the sides. So it's like you're making a box with your hands. And when you say box very slowly, you would hear the b, b, ba, x, x. That x, x. That is the sound of X. In the middle of a word, like extra, or extraordinary, or explain, or at the end of a word, like box, fox, axe. So it's that x sound. I do have an interesting fact for you. Did you know that in the word X-ray, a lot of people think that X stands for something? Like it's maybe a letter that has this long name of a special kind of array. Guess what? The guy that discovered the X-ray did not know what it was, and he decided to just call it X because he didn't know what it was. Isn't that a great fun fact? So that's where X-ray comes from. Okay, so I was going to tell you when an X is at the beginning of a word, it actually steals the sound of Z, and it sounds like Z. There's a company that makes copy machines called Xerox. It's spelled with an X, but what do you hear? Z. I know we haven't done Z yet, but I think most of you know that Z says Z. Well, X says Z when it is at the beginning of a word. So you will learn that later on. You might not even look at that much until you get into first grade. I don't know if you'll do it in kindergarten, but the sound you will see the most often with an X is in the middle or at the end of a word when it says X, like in box. So let's practice our little saying for X then, okay? So X says X, X at the end of a word like box. We're going to add that in. It's at the end of the word, okay? So X says X at the end of a word like box. Good job. See you next week, and then not for many weeks after that. So, bye. Have a good week. See ya. Here we have an X paper that looks like it's already done. and I have not talked you through it. Here's what happened. I'm having a terrible time with my lighting this morning. So I recorded this and I forgot to see if it was in focus, excuse me, and it was blurry. So I'm just gonna tell you what I said as I made these. X is another twin letter, and it's just 2 strokes. Slide down, pick up your pencil, slide down. So as I made this one looks pretty good. See where it crossed right here on the middle line? This is what I would often see kindergartners do. As they would come down, they would cross too high. They would cross upstairs. See how that's up here and not down there? So as you practice your X's, be sure on the second line, especially, your eyeball is looking right there, and you are planning ahead for your pencil to touch right there as it crosses. And that was my favorite uppercase X. The only thing I would say on the lowercase x's, it's all exactly the same, but I feel like these little samples that they did, if I drew a line where they crossed and connected it, I feel like they're not crossing in the middle. They're crossing kind of high. So I would rather see you crossing, if you drew an imaginary line, crossing a little bit lower. But that's just being super picky. So just make sure you do 2 straight lines, but the lines are sliding lines. Straight, straight, but slide, slide. And then that was my favorite one. Some of you might be good at X's already. I don't know if you've played the game Tic-Tac-Toe, where you make your X's and O's, but that is a really good game to practice your X's. Alrighty, there you go.